Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Soccer for Us. On this episode, we are going to talk about some pretty good performances in France for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. To chat about that with me today is the greatest historian on U.S. soccer Twitter. It is Thomas, aka US Keeper. Thomas, how are you?
I'm doing well, Bart. How about yourself?
I am well. This Olympics it's fun. It is fun to watch the Olympics. It is fun to have all these sports on television.
Yeah, no doubt.
And joining us again for the first time in it feels like a decade is the greatest educator of the next generation. It is Caleb, aka USMNT Corner. Caleb, you literally were just preparing your room to teach kids today so that you can go coach them in soccer tomorrow as well. How are you, sir? Good to hear you again.
Oh man. Well, first of all, it's good to be back. I know it seems like forever since I've been on one. Busy times. Educator, coach. I feel like I'm kind of always going, but just trying to do my part for the next generation.
Well, we appreciate the efforts that you put into making sure kids of the next generation love soccer. Speaking of loving soccer, there definitely was a lot to love this past. It felt like both a month and 2 days at the same time. These Olympic tournaments have such a crazy amount of soccer packed into a very short window. Caleb, outside of the U.S., what has been your favorite soccer thing at the Olympics?
Outside of the U.S.?
Yeah.
I mean, I think any answer other than the unbelievably incredible VAR decision. But I guess all my days are running together. Was it a week ago with Argentina coming back?
Yes.
Or Argentina scoring, tying it up, and then what was it, like an hour later? Or was it more than an hour? I don't know. It was entirely
a long time.
Way too long to come back and be like, yeah, no, just kidding. We were joking. Just that's got to be incredible. And then as far as like non-soccer, the U.S. women's rugby winning bronze was fantastic moment.
That final try was an impressive feat of athleticism.
I mean, just incredible. And then the emotion all over the field, the announcers. I mean, it's hard not to be emotional watching it. I mean, it's just really, really cool. Really cool moment.
Thomas, your favorite non-U.S. and non-soccer thing?
I mean, just the overall soccer just is, I don't know. It's been a pretty entertaining product to watch. I think the production has been pretty good. I've liked, what they've offered there. I mean, gymnastics is, I've enjoyed watching the U.S. women as a team, win the gold in the gymnastics. So that was, I know enjoyable for myself and my daughter to watch that. So.
Yeah, that watching the U.S. women's gymnastics team the other day that made you feel real patriotic. Like those girls all individually were fantastic, and then collectively a wonderful group to watch.
Yeah, it's fun to watch. I know summer seems to fit in a lot of times with just there's not a lot else on television, so you can kind of take it all in a little bit. So it's the timing works, I think, better scheduling wise than maybe the Winter Olympics.
Well, we do have U.S. soccer things to talk about, and for the most part, pretty darn good things. To recap, the U.S. men's and women's teams are in this tournament. The men played France to a 3-0 loss, then came back and beat New Zealand 4-1 and Guinea 3-0. The women topped their group by defeating Zambia 3-0, beat Germany 4-1, and then beat Australia on the final group day 2-1, despite a pretty furious comeback from Australia to try to seal advancement to the knockouts. We'll talk about that when we get there. But both teams get to the knockout rounds. Both teams advance to the quarterfinals, technically. Obviously, on the women's side, you have only 12 teams, so there are some permutations that allow non-second place winners to advance, but the U.S. won. But on the men's side, there is no such thing, and they still finished second in the group, which is pretty darn awesome because I think, Thomas, you and I chatted before this, and we said the very clear goal, right, of this team should be to make the knockouts. But despite having a slightly weaker group, that wasn't a guarantee. But they looked pretty darn good getting to the knockouts, finishing second, yes, but still looked darn good in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of surprised me because leading into it, they hadn't looked good into the friendly leading up to that. I was against Japan, I think, in a couple, I don't know, several weeks back, but they didn't look good. They couldn't. There was no attack. And that was most of the squad that was going to be there. And they've really found another gear. It's exciting to watch. This group kind of come together because it really has a lot of young talent on it that is kind of on the cusp. And so to see it all kind of come together is pretty exciting because I've watched a lot of Olympics for the U.S. and they just haven't shown very well. This is the first time they've ever won 2 matches in an Olympics, and so like that feat alone is pretty impressive. On top of in fact they've only advanced to the knockout stage one time, and back in 2000. So it's nice to see. It's not with a bunch of just throw in MLS players that are just 23 or any other player that's just 23. It's a good quality group that's being coached well right now.
Yeah, Caleb, obviously we didn't get your thoughts on the group as a whole, but you look at them now. Does it meet the expectations you had of this group when you saw the roster and before the tournament?
I think it for sure meets and probably exceeds most of all of our expectations. I know I expected them to do well, but I feel like they've played better than I thought. I mean, you look at some of the opposition and you think, okay, probably have good chances there. But looking at the game versus France, I know we'll talk about it a little bit later. I think there's a lot to like. I think there are also some players that have surprised some of us. Again, foreshadowing, I'm sure we'll talk about certain players, but one for me, Georgia Mihailovic. I think a lot of people were really questioning, and honestly, rightfully so, really questioning that decision. But I think for the most part, he's shut a lot of people up. So, yeah, I think you have to be happy with what's happened and how things have played out. And like I said, for most of us, I would say the overall thought would probably be exceeds expectations.
Well, let's talk about that France game. I mean, look, yes, we lost 3-0, but as you rightfully pointed out, this team did not look bad. And in fact, I thought 3-0 was like the least line you could possibly have had. Looking at that match play out, I mean, it seemed like the U.S. not only took it to France, but at times in the game really dominated them. And certainly at least had their way outside of maybe some final balls in the final third. But even then, we had scoring opportunities. What do you think the difference was that made the scoreline 3-0?
As much as I hate using this, I think it really came into play. But you had a little bit of luck on the France side and unluckiness on the U.S. side. I mean, 2 finishes from outside the box for France. It's a bit unlucky on the U.S. side, a bit lucky for the France side. I mean, not taking anything from Olise and Lacazette, they're great finishes, but um, you know, those aren't like extremely high percentage chances there. And then we hit one outside the box, Georgi Mihailovic, and bangs the crossbar, a couple of inches difference, and it's a 1-0 lead there. A little later on, John Tolkien header off the upright. I mean, just a lot of things could have been different. I also, you know, if we go up 1-0, I think it's a completely different ball game. Anyways, we were looking really, really good. So, like I said, I hate to bring luck into it, but I think there was definitely an element in that game.
Well, I mean, look, you mentioned that we had a chance or two to go up 1-0. But for me, luck was more about the fact that France scored on the opportunities they created. They did not create many, and they just happened to score the ones they created. Thomas, was it luck? Was it talent? Was it just? I mean, it was hard to watch because you saw this team playing so well, and to watch them lose 3-0, it just felt weird.
It did. I mean, the thing is that they did play very well. They were very sound. They had their chances. I think. And look, I've watched a lot of U.S. soccer. The just misses, the post, all these certain things that just don't go their way. Like, they always seem to go the better team's way. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, geez, this is starting to follow. Go off the tracks very quickly here. And so, to Keela's point, I hate to use the luck unluck type of thing, but like that's kind of what happened. And then I mean, I don't know if they let up a little bit. There definitely was, even after the first goal, they still were pushing hard on that. And then a little bit started to kind of fall off. I think they lost a little bit. I mean, I'll give them major credit for just recovering to the next match, right? Because I think that's the challenge after losing 3-0. I mean, I'm hoping, you get out of there with a 1 or 2-0 loss in general from a goal differential. But they, you just so many close chances. They had to still feel good coming out of that match, though.
Yeah, I really hope from a coaching standpoint that Marko Mitrovic kind of hit home that, guys, we did a lot of good things. Because as you mentioned, there was a lot of good moments. There were a lot of good individual performances. I thought as a team, they still defended pretty well for the most part. There was a little bit of a drop off after, especially that second goal. And also to your point, I think it would have been very easy to get down on yourselves after a 3-0 loss because while the next two games are winnable, I mean, a 3-0 goal differential is very hard to get out of. But I do think that you look at, I mean, Mihailovic hit the crossbar. Maguire had a couple of opportunities, but at the end of the day, France is very good. And when you just look at the players, and I hate to do the Badge FC starting lineups, but I mean, France has had some pretty darn good players playing for some high level teams in their lineup, and no offense to Columbus Crew, who is a great team, it's just not comparable. How much of the talent difference did you see, or do you think that our guys kind of covered it up pretty well?
I mean, I thought the talent. I mean, I think there's a little bit of you could definitely see France had some better talent in certain positions. I think I just think they showed well. I think they held their own, more than we've seen in a match of that nature, right? Like they've really, I mean, they were getting good shots, they're getting shots on goal, it's some big chances. Like they really kind of surprised, I think myself a little bit, and I'm sure others, that they were able to kind of hold their own because we just didn't know what we were going to see out of this group.
Yeah, Caleb, look, I don't think this is a hot take, but Alexander Lacazette is better than any of the guys we had on the field.
Yeah, hot take alert. Yeah, I mean they had quality all over the pitch. I think, I mean, you both said it. Yeah, you tip your hat in their direction for quality and talent, but it wasn't drastic overall, right? Like I thought we played well, controlled parts of the matches, and going into it, I think a lot of people thought, oh, France is going to kill us, or back in the day, there's no chance we would have been able to play with them. It would have only been ugly, and that wasn't the case. I mean, we played really, really pretty soccer at moments, slipping guys in, creating chances, having spells of possession. Um, the talent in the U.S. is growing, and we're watching that, and it's really, really cool to see. I don't think it's any um, surprise, or I think I don't think it's a coincidence, rather, that we're going to the quarterfinals for the first time in 24 years, right? I mean, um, haven't been in the Olympics in 16 years, and we get in and we stamp our way to the knockout rounds by playing good soccer. And I say good, effective soccer, right? Like, yes, against France, sure. Again, we talked about luck a little bit, but we put ourselves in really good situations. It wasn't like you look at the 3-0 scoreline and you think, oh, France absolutely destroyed US, and it wasn't that way. So I guess, like I said, I look at it as a little bit unlucky, but at the end of the day, we get through it, and play, like you mentioned, some winnable matches, and we did the job.
Well, look, you go down with a 3-0 defeat, but you respond with the 4-1 win over New Zealand. I think that, to me, does kind of show the quality the team has individually and collectively. And this was a good example of our talent is there, because they were able to dictate the match, despite not having the lion's share of possession. I mean, New Zealand did technically outpossess the U.S. in this 4-1 loss, but the U.S. 22 shots with just 47% possession. To me, Thomas, that is, I mean, to Kayla's point of being effective, but knowing that having the ball itself is not the goal of the game. The goal is to score. And it happened early. It happened in multiple different ways. What did you take from this 4-1 win over New Zealand?
I mean, it was a great response, right? Coming off the loss to France, to be able to come out strong and fast and get those 3 goals, by halftime and go up, and really just in doing it in a dominant fashion, right? I mean, they really did. I mean, with a few bounces the right direction, you may score another, goal or two. So I guess it's a testament to the to this group. Again, there's a lot of young players on this group that just haven't really been in this environment. I think that's why it's so important for this success. It's like, hey, look, this is a tournament type of environment. I mean, the turnaround days we talk about a lot, they're very quick, and so these games come very quickly. There's not a lot of recovery time in here, so it's really it's just a good testament that they were able to pretty much roll the same group out and go out and put a dominant result out there that they needed, and then it gets their goal differential back to 0, headed into the final match that positions themselves in a good spot to be able to get a needed result in the third match.
Yeah, I think, to your point, that erasing that goal differential, the negative goal differential, was huge in this match, because when you looked at the standings, you knew all along, and I think we talked about this on the preview episode, that the goal was to beat New Zealand and Guinea. But even still, you may have been in a position where you maybe needed some goal differential help, or say things don't go your way and you end up drawing a team. You are going to need possibly some goal differential help. So erasing that in one match, that was pretty darn good.
Yeah, in a convincing fashion, and again, resets it. So okay, here we we need this sort of result here with maybe a little help from France, who um, took care of New Zealand, of course.
It took care of everyone. Caleb, I mentioned, just 47% possession, still 22 shots. A couple more stats that I want you to kind of respond to about this, because I think it's important, again, to talk about your efficiency word. 22 shots, 15 inside the box, 8 on target total. we completed fewer passes than New Zealand, but again, they had more possession. But we had more passes in our opposition half, and we had more touches. 44, by the way, 44 touches in the opposition box. So things you're not really thinking about during the game, but you look back and you go, "Holy crap, we were really pressing their defensive half the entire game."
Yeah, I think you talked about it a little while ago. First and foremost is the response part, right? The going down 3-0 or losing 3-0 rather, and then bouncing back and having two good performances. I think first talking about that is extremely important, right? The mentality of the team, and honestly, we have to give Mitrovic credit for that, to have his team ready and have that bounce back, right? Having that confidence to come back and say it didn't go our way, but we still have a job to do, and then go out and do it. So I've been really impressed with that. So that's first. And then second, talking about efficiency and talking about not having possession, or as much possession rather, but still being effective. That to me is soccer. That's how soccer should be played. Whether we have, like, are we creating chances? We can have 67, 75, 82% possession. I don't care. You name it. But if we're not creating chances, it is absolutely pointless, right? Possession without a purpose is pointless. I say it all the time. And vice versa, right? If we don't have the possession, if we're going to let them play with the ball, if they're going to try, and then we're going to press them, turn them over, and then attack them quickly and counter them quickly, can it work? And clearly it can. It was very effective. The guys played well, and honestly, it's something I would really love to see on the senior side, because I think our players are built for that specifically. You don't have to have all of the ball to be dominant, right? We've seen a lot of unfortunate results where we had tons of possession and lost the game, right? All across the U.S. landscape. And we've even heard, well, we played well and we had possession. Like that's some sort of consolation prize. Like, no, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is 3 points. Did we win? And if we didn't, then it's pointless, right? So I think the efficiency, the effectiveness to play different ways is extremely important to be able to do, and very cool to see, because I was not sure what to expect from the team and Mitrovic, and I'm very happy.
I mean, look, it continued against Guinea, right? You mentioned not necessarily always having to have the ball. And in this match, but by the way, I want to shout out Guinea. They did very well this tournament, despite clearly not having the best, I guess, structural organization. But, you know, again, in this match, 38% possession. Guinea did end up getting more shots. You kind of looked at the way that this went, and they did ratchet up their attacking dominance in the second half because they needed to, because they were literally facing elimination. But Thomas, the Guinea match, a 3-0 win, and I mean, really done and dusted by halftime. You know, we were up 2-0. We got a third in the second half as they were chasing. I think to me that was probably the best I've seen a U.S. team look from the men's side in terms of truly like stamping a game with stamping their mark on a game when you needed a good performance.
Yeah, it's been a long time to see, like, I mean, there's urgency obviously in the match to get a result, but like just to put it away, leave no doubt. You know, it wasn't a 1-0, nail biter at the end like it was against, at the World Cup against Iran, right? Like they went out there, they got the early goals in the first half, they made a statement, and there was no questions left behind. Like we're in good shape. France is doing what they need to do, and they're good to go. So that was kind of relief. It's like, oh wow, this is a nice feeling to have as fans. But again, just the ability for these players to kind of go out there and kind of do what they need to do is impressive. It's just it doesn't seem like they're restricted by any sort of system at this point. So yeah, it was nice to see, uh, and I'm excited for the next round.
Mihailovic opened the scoring with a free kick. Nice to see us scoring off free kicks too.
Yeah, that was a beautiful upper 90. Like, I mean, just yeah, we don't score a lot of free kicks,
Yeah.
So, but that was a nice placement there by Malvich.
Remember when Brad Davis made the 2014 World Cup, and the only reason he made it is because he's like the only person in the U.S. pool who could actually score off a free kick.
Yeah, he didn't get many chances. I think he only started and played in that Germany match, the last one of the group stage. So,
Caleb, how do we coach kids to score more off of free kicks?
You let them do it. You let them do it.
Whoa. That doesn't sound like coaching. That sounds like letting kids have freedom with the ball now.
Whoa. Hey, don't let certain clubs around Atlanta hear you say that.
There are only 27 and only kids how to play.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but seriously, I mean, look, you look at the team in the Skinny match, and again, it's a good example of not necessarily needing the ball to dominate a game. Guinea didn't really have a whole lot of chances in that first half while we were building a 2-0 lead. But defensively, even as Guinea ratcheted up their pressure, the defense held pretty strong. And we're going to talk more about individual players in a second. But I do think it's time to maybe talk about Walker and Miles rekindling that relationship they had during World Cup qualifying.
Well, I think looking at the roster before the game started, you had to look at that. Even if you don't rate Miles and Walker highly for the senior team, you have to look at those two guys and think that that's going to be a strong point for the team, leadership wise, experience wise, and then even talent wise. They're both extremely good defenders, really good in the air. I thought they played really, really well, and I'm very happy to see them back there. I am a big believer in having two very strong center backs anchor a team, and it's been really cool to watch them. And Atlanta fan, Miles Robinson fan for a long time before he left. I love seeing him do well. Walker, Georgia guy, love seeing him do well. So yeah, I think they definitely deserve credit. And then also, if we're talking defense, you got to give credit to Patrick Schultze. I think he made some.
Well, I don't know if we can do that. He doesn't play in Europe.
Well, yeah, but keepers can play in MLS and still be okay. That's what
this is a fact, though.
That's
I
the only
very much say that.
the only position. But no, I think he made some really good saves. And it actually, I was just reading this. It was the USA's third shutout victory and fourth all time at the Olympics. Let's see. No. Fifth clean sheet that the U.S. has kept at the Olympic men's soccer tournament, period. And that goes back to 100 years. So that's pretty cool. And I think you have to give them credit because, we had the game in hand. But to keep that clean sheet, as a keeper, as a defender myself, it's important. And it's really good for those guys to do their job and do it well.
Yeah, Thomas, I think it's important to give credit to, the defense when you only conceded. Look, the two France goals were outside the box. I think both of those were probably more on midfielders than a defender. The goal against New Zealand was, again, a team pressing for a goal, and sometimes things happen. I mean, they're still a U23 team. But it looked almost as if, and I think this was the goal of bringing both of these center backs specifically in, but it's almost like Walker and Miles were supposed to be the adults in the room. But I felt like Schulte did a good job of also being an adult in the room.
Yeah, I mean Schulte. I mean, he's 23 years old. He's right on that line, and he's been playing very well right now. So I mean, in my opinion, he's next in line to be, brought into the national team scene. And so you do have a good continuity between the center backs and the goalkeeper here working together, right? Because they do kind of still need to keep some of the organization, with the fullbacks and some of the midfielders, in terms of, making sure that everyone's doing their job in there. So that I think that's kind of key and definitely a gap. And we're seeing that it's to this point really smart, roster selections to bring in, Zimmerman and Miles.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, we advanced to the knockouts. 6 points, 2 wins. That's great. Um, getting 2 wins in any tournament is an achievement, and we did it in this one. I think we have on this podcast said all the time that, the actual result of a youth national team tournament is not as important as getting a group of guys to come together and play together for the U.S. national team, getting them that tournament experience, playing together. And I think it's fair to say that no one on this team right now is pushing anyone out of their spot necessarily as a senior national team player. Certainly not any starters. But I think when you again just look at the stated goal of having a bunch of guys play for the U.S., wear the shirt, that was achieved, and then some because they did get the 2 wins. They're going to the knockout rounds, which I think it should always be a goal of any time this program enters a youth national competition. But I do wonder if you think, Thomas, there's anyone on this team right now who is pushing into that group of senior national team players who are being considered for call-ups. I think we like we said all the time, there's like 15 to 18 guys that are like for sure going to be there, right? I don't think anyone on this team is pushing any of those guys out. Maybe we could talk about maybe some goalkeepers, but other players as well. There's some guys who are making cases to at least get call-ups, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, quick, just a quick rundown. Tolkien, he's looked good. Pereira, I mean, he had 2 goals in the final match. I mean, he's 21 years old. He's growing. Tespin for sure. Yao.
Yeah.
Aaron,
Yes.
Paxton Aronson, right? Like though, like to me, like and that's the key, right? If you look at the past big tournaments, right? I know that they haven't participated in the Olympics that much. If you can get 4 or 5, 6 players from this group and play some sort of a role in the national team heading into the second half of this cycle, that's key. I mean, you look at 08 as an example. Bradley's on that team. Freddie, Morsadou, Stuart Holden, Charlie Davies, Benny Fallhaber, Josie Altidore, right? Like, there's 5 or 6 guys, on a team that didn't get out of the group that end up being, part of the, some of them are part of the, 09 Confederations Cup. Some of them are part of the Olympics. I mean, Olympics, the 2010 World Cup, right? So, like, that's there. That opportunity is there. And so I think there's definitely an opportunity for some of these players to make a squad, and who knows?
Yeah, Caleb, this is a good way to kind of vet guys, right? Get them experience, see how they perform in actual competitions. And again, that's just kind of the point of these youth tournaments, because you never get the best of that age group, right? Like, this is clearly not the best group of under 23 players. But outside of your boy Georgi Mihailovic, who do you look at that is a guy who, like in September, you're saying, I'm calling you up?
Well, first, I'd like to say that this is supposed to be normal, right? We've talked about progression of players and going through the ranks, where the last cycle we've had has been so weird because we had a lost generation. So our senior team was a U23 team, right? Like, guys were 18, 19, 20 years old expecting to play for the senior national team, which is just not reality, right? So having the Olympics and actually qualifying for it is huge, because you need these moments. These are big games for these guys to play. Like you said, it is experience. We need this. These are stepping stones, and a lot of guys are making names for themselves. I think, Thomas talked about Tolkien and Kevin Paredes. Tanner Tessman has been absolutely fantastic. I love his versatility. I've liked the kid for a long time, but I've been really, really impressed with him stepping up, being a leader on this team. Could play the 6, can play the 8, could play center back if you needed him to. That versatility and that utility really goes a long way as far as being selected for constricted rosters.
Yes.
Anytime you can play multiple positions, it's going to be in your favor, especially for Olympics, when it's the most constricted. But my goodness, Griffin Yao has looked extremely dangerous. Winger is a shallow area for the senior team at the moment. So, I mean, you can't just not turn over that leaf. And I think he's turning the leaf over for everybody right now. He looks extremely dangerous when the ball's at his feet. He's wanting to go after guys. He is goal dangerous. And I mean, he's done it for club, so no one should be surprised. But I've really liked him.
He has, but I think it's fair to say that he has done it for a club team where, again, Netherlands, Belgium, they're like a half a step up from MLS. So it's more like, oh, we get to see it against on the world, on an international stage.
Right.
And it's more like, okay, he proved it that he can do it at this stage as well. Like
Exactly.
he's proved it for his club for a good amount of time. Now he's proving it in this area. So to your 100%. Point, like, how do we then get him to prove it in another
right
stage?
And that's all he's been doing. He just keep knocking down barriers, like proving the doubters wrong, coming to the Olympics, not starting, and then forcing Mitrovic's hand to start. I've just, God, really, really like that kid. So yeah, I mean, I think he absolutely deserves some opportunities with the senior national team. Paxton Aronson has looked very, very good, very comfortable. His pass to put Paredes through the other day, I mean, just absolutely perfect positioning on the pass, or placement rather, the weight, everything about it. I mean, yeah, I've just been super impressed with a lot of these guys. But those, to me, like I said, probably, if I had to put it, Tessman, Paxton, and Griffin Yao are the top 3 for me.
Well, Thomas, let's have that goalkeeper discussion then. I think it's fair to say that on the senior side, we have a bunch of guys who we don't trust right now. I think we trust Matt Turner the most, but our trust in him has been shaken a little bit. Fair to, mostly on him. He has been the one not playing as well as he should. I know everyone and their mother was clamoring for Gaga Slonina, because Gaga, he was great at Chicago, and he went to Europe and he got signed by Chelsea. He's not playing for Chelsea, but he got signed by him. Now he's in their loan army. But I think people are discrediting Patrick Schulte merely because he plays for Columbus Crew. But like, he's a MLS Cup winning goalkeeper. He did that at 21, or 22. Maybe he was 21 at that point. He's played in CONCACAF Champions Cup, which I know is not the Champions League. I know it's not Europa League, but point is, he is playing at a very high level for what he can get to. And I know everyone wanted Gaga, but I feel like Schulte has proven he's pretty darn good. I know people also blame him for that first goal that Lacazette scored for France. And I just want to challenge them to try to save any ball, because if a ball is going to the side net, that's not exactly something easy to save. But I don't know. I've been impressed with Schulte. I think that when you look at our senior national team goalkeepers, I don't know who that number 3 is right now. And I feel like it's time to elevate a young guy fully permanently into that number 3 spot. And it seems like Schulte's been the preferred starter in this tournament. And I know that probably makes people mad because he plays in MLS, but I think he's been pretty darn good.
He really has. I mean, it's hard to argue. He's had a very solid season in MLS. He's done very well in this tournament. Again, my issue with the goalkeeper conversation is this. Like, look, Turner needs to be better. I think he gets the playing time, and there's, and we're
I
having a
agree.
different
I agree.
conversation about that. The people calling for Horvath to start. Did you miss when Horvath came in, and conceded after Turner went out injured? Like, you can't, like, to me, like, it's an overreaction. And look, and to think a teenager or even someone in their early 20s is going to be able to come in and take the spot. It's not Tony Miola. It's not 1990 cycle, guys. It's just not that. That's not the way it is. These players are playing at lower levels. They need to be playing at higher levels. I'm not saying that it's never going to happen, but trust me, I followed a lot of goalkeepers, that have just not been able to get over that hump. You know what I mean? High expectations in their teens, early 20s, and then they can't, it doesn't come to anything. So I think we have to be, somewhat patient with those goalkeepers. And Schulte, in my opinion, has earned a spot on this roster. And honestly, I kind of think he jumps to the second spot, in my opinion, behind Turner right now. But time's going to tell. I mean, I'm of the belief, you need to be, look, he's MLS, that's fine, but he's a keeper. That's, I think keepers need to have their opportunities, but they've got to be playing consistent and regularly, especially as we get towards, we're midpoint of this cycle. They have to go ahead and make sure they're playing going forward, because if they're not, we're going to be in a tough position. And hopefully, um, if that means you come back to MLS, then that means you come back to MLS. But you get your time, you get your minutes, you get your reps.
I think I don't know if I put him above Horvath, but I think we need to start getting him in the full national team picture as a goalkeeper. And most of the time, you're going to be able to bring three. I don't, why not bring him? In September, I want him to be on that roster. And also, look, if again, not trying to discredit Gaga, this is not a anti-Gaga portion of this podcast. I think both of these guys could end up being very good for us, and having two guys under the age of 25 who are playing at a very good level is a positive thing if you're the U.S. national team. But I think I know we don't believe in player development as a job of a national team coach, but I think it is the job of the national team coach to try to identify young talent that has the potential to make a big move. And I think Schulte's in that right now, where the next coach, it would be nice if you can bring in Schulte into the January and October camps. I don't know if he plays. I'm not asking for that, but show that he is a legitimate player in this pool to help him get a move to pick a league, over the winter break when MLS season is over. And Schulte's probably, by the way, playing for another MLS Cup. As Columbus look so darn good right now. A guy who possibly could be going to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals in MLS as a goalkeeper at 23 years old. We need to start trying to get him to the next level so that he can start proving if he can be the next guy for this national team. Because look, Turner and Horvath, they're 30. They've got definitely this next cycle, but after that, it feels like an open competition. And you've already got one guy in Europe, Diego Koken, who's at Barcelona, who it seems like is on track to be, if not a number 2, a number 1 at some point. So what's the plan for getting Schulte over to Europe at a decent club and a decent league? That's where my thought is for this.
Yeah, I think if you get the right coach in play that understands how Europe operates, then you can start having conversations with players and say, look, this may be a better fit for you. Make your choice.
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you, but like, there is a consultative piece of it, and that isn't developmental, but it's also like, hey, like, I want you to succeed so you can help the national team succeed, right? It's a collaboration in that.
Yeah.
And I think it's not some, I hate to say this, I think that's missing from having an American coach with very little or no experience in how it operates in Europe. And I think that's where that consultative piece is so important for the players, especially the younger ones that maybe are leaving, MLS and coming there, to kind of have that like support from their leaders, from their coaches saying, hey, look, we're watching you. Here's what we're seeing and thinking, right? Just food for thought, because sometimes agents don't really have that best interest in the players, whereas the coaches, that you try to start to trust might or should.
So that stat I was reading earlier, I was saying they had four clean sheets. They have 5 clean sheets at the U.S. At the Olympics, which is 100 years, right? 4 shutout victories. So 5 clean sheets, but 4 shutout victories. So that's why I messed that stat up. But it's really cool, super impressive to see.
My stats are not all comprehensive, in one spot, because I have the U stuff in one spot. Let me just see. They must have had a couple.
And then it says it's the 3rd shutout victory since 1982, 4th all time, but it's the 5th clean sheet. So there must have been some sort of 0-0 draw in there. And then this was the coolest one, is the fact that we've reached the quarterfinals for the 3rd time since 1924. Just 3 times we've been to the quarterfinals. So I don't think people realize how like big that is. This is only the 3rd time that we've reached the quarterfinals in 100 years. 100 years, a century. And this is the 3rd time we've been to the quarterfinals. I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is, because I think I'm at the point now where just making youth tournaments isn't good enough anymore for this men's team. Mm-hmm. Mainly because CONCACAF sucks and we should absolutely be getting there. So like not getting there, not getting to the Olympics for the past, even 12 years is really embarrassing, let alone since 2008. Like, but the fact that we didn't make in 2020 and even 2016 is a little embarrassing, right? Like that should not have ever happened. But now the expectation needs to be not just to make it, but to get out of the group. That just needs to be the expectation.
100%.
Talking of making the quarterfinals, and let's talk about a team that has never not made the quarterfinals. It's the U.S. Women's National Team. They are 3-0, get 9 points, scored 9 goals in their group stage of the Olympics. I don't know what I was expecting from this team, given that it is still a relatively young team. We have a coach in her first international tournament, also a coach that has up to this point only coached 4 matches with this team. But I don't think I was expecting such dominant performances and such convincing wins from this team. Thomas, we get a 3-0 win over Zambia that I think everyone after the game thought, wow, that probably should have been more. But it seemed like that team went up 3-0. They got Zambia got the red card for what is a red card by the letter of the law, but kind of, I think we all agreed it was real soft even for that. And then they just went into cruise control. But the fact that Zambia never really threatened, Barbara Banda did not score against us. We shut them out. Something the other 2 teams in our group didn't do. It set a good tone for what the Emma Hayes team can do. And despite wasting a lot of the great opportunities they created, they still looked really darn good on that day.
They did. This is where I would kind of like a behind this, the scenes, view of what Emma Hayes is telling them, once they're up 3-0, right? Like, they did it, early, kind of, middle of the first half. And then like they say, look, just ease off. I don't know, but because they definitely had chances and it's like they should have probably won, 5 or 6-0 on that match. But um, but again, I think once the player went on the red card, like at that point, the urgency was kind of gone, right? They'd say, okay, well, let's not get injured. Let's not, let's work on some stuff, but we don't need to be attacking, driving forward, you know, anymore. And so, um, but again, they look good in doing it. So it's very, um, I guess in part of me was discouraged to your point, but I was like, well, they played pretty well, right? They got the result they needed. Let's just hope that Germany doesn't blow the doors off them, off Zambia when they play them, because I'm not expecting a win against Germany, right? Like that's kind of my mindset was, because Germany's good. So
They are good. Yeah, I think you got 3 goals in the first half before even that red card. I think if you want to be very critical of this team, Caleb, you can absolutely say, well, why didn't you score any on a team with only 10 players? I don't think this team, one, gave up any real clear-cut chances to Zambia, and two, they were still creating chances against them. They just didn't, the ball didn't go in the net, which was a problem for this team throughout the entire game. But I also think there was a level of, to Thomas's point, just a little like, okay, job done. We don't need to like go try to kill ourselves. And the fact that we have a game 2 days later.
Yeah, I think it was, for all intents and purposes, cruise control almost. The game was, I feel like they probably felt that it was in hand. You had already lost Sophia.
Yeah.
So why risk getting anybody else banged up? Just go in there, do your job. Let's end this game. I think that mentality was there. Had it been like a dire need to score goals, I think you would have seen a different intensity.
I mean, soap probably doesn't come off.
But being first game in, yeah, exactly. I think a lot of it was precautionary. Let's just take care of it. Let's get out of here unscathed. I think, maybe if it's game 3, if there's goal differential type stuff going on, you probably see a different intensity. But, I would like to see more goals. But at the end of the day, I think there was a calm confidence to just leg that one out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, goals by Trinity Rodman and Mallory Swanson. She got 2. I think there were plenty of opportunities to score before that. Soph missed a chance or 2, and plenty of opportunities to score after that. I think it's fair to categorize this as a job done type of game, not a emphatic win. But it was also a very inefficient, right, win where you probably could have scored more, probably should have finished more of your chances, but didn't. Then you move on to Germany, and you get a 4-1 win. And I think this was a game where you finished the chances, a good amount of chances you created. I mean, you got 4 goals, but you looked really in control of the entire match. And Thomas, to your point, I don't think anyone expected to beat Germany because they are a good team. And despite having Oberdorf and a couple of other players not fully healthy, and with this team, which, by the way, the U.S. is also missing players, so I'm not discrediting that. I think that argument that, oh, well, they're missing one starter and somehow we can't take credit. You beat them 4-1. You beat Germany 4-1 in a tournament. That's the only other team that has multiple Women's World Cup titles. That was a convincing, not just win, but a statement on international level that the U.S. women are not as down as some people want to make them.
yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I think right now they've got the right combinations in there. I mean, I think that's the key. I mean, that's the key to a great manager, finding the combinations of players and putting them together. Right? I mean, it's a testament that we're seeing the same lineups over and over. That being said, I'm a little concerned that with the short turnarounds, we don't players could be running low on steam that could impact in the knockout stage. But that continuity is there. We're seeing that. I mean, Emma Hayes is working that, and that's what great coaches do. They put the right players in the right positions for success.
success is obviously the goal for this women's national team, because anything less than, anything less than gold often feels like failing for this team. But Caleb, I think we do need to take a second to understand that, yes, the rest of the world has gotten better, caught up to an extent, right? I mean, Spain looked great last summer. Germany has fallen off a little bit, but are still very good. Still lots of talented players. But we still have really talented players. And to Thomas's point, the great combination of players. But Smith, Rodman, and Swanson are looking elite and are proving it.
Yeah, they're looking, fantastic. Everybody's coming up with all these nicknames for them: triumvirate, trifecta. I love Three's Company. But yeah, they've looked so good. And to Thomas's point, you've got to give a lot of credit to Emma Hayes there, finding the front three that works, finding the partnership that works, putting players in positions to succeed. And these Olympics, number one, the timing of these Olympics are so much more conducive to living on the East Coast, because I remember 4 years ago waking up at the butt crack of dawn to watch the most ridiculous, boring, pitiful soccer under our previous coach. Everybody knows how we all felt about him. We did, a lot of talking about that. But it's just so nice to see the players playing with confidence, playing not necessarily attractive soccer, but going back to the word that I used earlier, effective soccer. The efficiency, getting into positions, dangerous positions, and then capitalizing on those positions. They've looked really good, all of them as a whole. And I think, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more in detail, but I think coaching, if people didn't realize it now, I think they do now. Coaching matters big time.
Yeah, it does. Because this team is still, I think this team is playing pretty soccer. I think you are seeing some specific attacking movements, some combinations, some attempts to actually play as a team, which I don't think we saw under Vlatko, which is really disappointing. But is also harnessing their athletic talent, because I think the thing about this Germany game is this was finally a team that was unafraid to kind of square up with us and kind of actually try to play soccer against us. So many teams, the Mexico and Costa Rica games are perfect examples of teams who were not really trying to come at us too much, specifically Costa Rica. And shockingly, those are going to be teams that are hard to score against. Germany was not that team, and allowed us to really flex our muscles and stretch our legs and run at them and be what this team truly is at its heart, which is a counterattacking team. This team will thrive in transition moments. And, as much as Emma Hayes would probably prefer us to play a more European-esque style and be pretty and, have control of a game, and we do have that, this team is lethal when we get into a transition moment. And that's still the DNA and the identity of the U.S. women's program, that specifically with the three that we have up top. When we have that opportunity, man, it's just fun to watch these girls run at the defenses.
Well, I think that's why she's so effective. She could probably coach and manage many different ways, but she sees what the strength is and she's playing to that strength. And that's what a good coach does. And we talked about kind of what to expect when she comes in. And one of the things we talked about was, she's cutthroat. And if you're not making the cut, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how many goals you have to your name. She's going to tell you like it is. And she made a massive call by leaving Alex Morgan, one of the greatest players in U.S. women's national team history, left her home for the Olympics. And it's clearly the right call. Clearly the right call. She can't do anymore what these three girls in Mal Swanson, Sophie Smith, and Trinity Rodman are doing. Like you said, when that diagonal comes, putting them in behind the defensive line, when they turn a team over, when they press, I mean, they are not only workhorses, but they're so skilled technically, and then they are all they're lethal in front of goal right now, and they're finishing all their chances. I say all their chances. They're finishing chances at a really nice rate, and it's really cool to see. And I think a lot of time, or I think a lot of people are surprised just by the last several years of watching the U.S. and how bad it was, because the U.S. women's was so bad for a minute. But I don't think it was necessarily all the players' fault. Mm-hmm. Coaching really, 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 really matters, and we are seeing that displayed for all to see.
Well, I mean, I think coaching is very important in terms of setting the tone and holding players accountable. But at the end of the day, the players also have to go out there and perform. And I think this Germany game was the first time I've seen this team look intense and play with that intensity that I think, a lot of us had come to expect from this national team. Thomas, they get a 2-1 win over Australia. They do. Australia scores. And I think people are going to look at the scoreline and think it was a little bit closer of a game than it actually was. The U.S. got a goal from Trinity Rodman in the first half. But again, Australia playing about 5 in the back, trying to be really compact because they just had to draw this game to for sure get to the next round. And I think they even knew a win probably wasn't going to be useful unless they beat us by a lot, because Germany had the upper hand in terms of goal differential and we're playing Zambia. So you knew they were going to try to be compact, and they could not let up a goal. But we still, again, created chances. Get that long range goal from Corbin Albert in the second half. But Australia gets a goal in the dying moments. And I just want people to look at this because everyone criticizes everything about this team. When a team is throwing literally everything at you and you don't have anything to play for, because at this point, you're pretty much assured that you're going to win the group. I mean, Australia's going to have to score 2.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought they played, very well through the match. They're in control. Everything, they were doing everything they needed to do. I mean, I did see Emma Hayes give a hand gesture of the score of the Germany match, just make sure they're the team knew. But it's again lame Greg Berhalter joke. But they really had it in hand, and it's good to see that they're able to finish out the group strong, and and they play on Saturday. It's a quick turnaround. There's not any time to rest for this group.
Luckily, she didn't do it right before a corner kick or a set piece that then directly resulted in a goal. But yeah, this is. I think even because you had to, obviously Tiana Davidson was out with an injury, so you had to start Emily Sonnet, which is not something I want to have to do a whole lot of anymore. Hopefully Tiana's healthy come Saturday. But you were not at your best from a lineup standpoint. You still took care of business in a very good way. And again, Australia was playing for everything at that point because they came into this game needing a draw to assure going it through. And then once you go up 2-0, they were fighting for everything. Caleb, as you look now forward at this team, are we able to be confident that they can win gold?
I mean, I think you got to like the chances. Like you've mentioned, the Germany game was a big result. And then going in to Australia and taking care of business without Tiana Davidson, who I think has been really, really integral to how Emma wants to attack. She's got that great diagonal. And then, even missing Jaden Shaw off the bench. She hasn't been starting, which I think she should, underneath the front three. Anyways, that's for another discussion.
Yeah.
But she hasn't been starting. She couldn't
Yeah.
come in off the bench. I think she offers a lot when she comes in. So not having that, you got people stepping up, like you said. Emily Sonnet coming in. I think she made the roster. Talking about versatility a while ago, she made the roster because she can step in and play in a lot of different positions. And she came in and she did the job. We took care of business. We're moving forward, and you gotta like where we're at right now. And I would venture to say that our front three and our attack is probably the most dangerous in the tournament. So if we can do the job defensively and keep doing what we're doing up top, then I'd say we got a pretty good shot. You got to like where
Yeah,
we're
I
at.
mean, we have scored the most goals of the tournament. We have 9. Germany, second, by the way, and 8. And Australia, weirdly enough, also in that tops. They have scored 7 goals this tournament, which is more than Spain and Japan, who are the next. So, Thomas, you look at the next round matchup, and it is Japan. It's a team that we have played a lot. She Believes Cup and everything else, a team that we have had. While people may not look at it as being pretty games, we have beaten them a lot. But as I just mentioned, Japan with 6 goals this tournament, they are pretty effective offensively. We will be without Sam Coffey in the round of 16. She picked up a yellow card against Australia, her second of the tournament. Possibly without Davidson. So I think those concern me, but I'm still looking at this, as Caleb said, this attack that has scored 9 goals in 3 games and saying, Japan, try to stop us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's always a battle with Japan. They're generally a very fast group out there, and it does concern me a little bit defensively if we don't have Davidson in the back there. But I think I think you got to keep rolling, with the attack, and get those early goals, because that those early goals set the tone of these matches. And I think that's key. We haven't, and again, the team is building with Emma Hayes. Again, there's going to be some adversity somewhere if they're going to win this gold medal. It's just going to be somewhere, and so they have to be able to, adjust quickly to that, right? So, I wouldn't say it's come easy, but they've definitely been clicking and finding the right spots, and putting those goal opportunities in. And so they've got to do that. Again, they beat Japan. They still got some tough matches ahead of them to get to that gold medal round. So it's got to be a good, again, continued good test that this group needs to see under Emma Hayes. And so I'm just excited to see it play out.
Yeah, Caleb, you've got Japan, as I mentioned, in the quarterfinal. If you win that, you're playing either Canada or Germany. Canada, obviously, we know that they are just a bunch of cheaters, and they actually haven't earned anything that they've done well in the past 5 years. That is on record, and I don't care if anyone clips that and makes it mad, because y'all are cheaters. You do, though, I feel like, to answer the question that I asked you earlier, you got to like this team's chance at least to play for gold. But specifically against Japan, very good attack, very good midfield. I think it's fair to say that you should have concerns about the U.S.'s midfield without Sam Coffey.
Yeah, I mean, Sam plays a big role. I would love to see, if she's out, I would love it if it could be a, double pivot of Corbin and Lindsay Horan with Jaden Shaw up front. But who knows how it's going to turn around as far as Shaw's injury.
Real quick, though, I want to point out how the gamesmanship of Emma Hayes has been this tournament, because Jaden Shaw has not played, right? She is still the rostered player, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Croy Bethune has just been the temporary replacement for every match. I love this from Emma Hayes, by the way.
I mean, look, that's managing. She's taking advantage of all the rules and doing what she needs to do. So you got to love it. I'm curious how things are going to shake out, but looking at Japan versus U.S. women's all time, 39 matches. US has won 30, drawn 8 times, and Japan has won 1 game in 2012 in the All Golf Cup. So you've got to like our chances there, just as far as history, and then also with the heat that we're coming in with. If anybody's scared, I would venture to say that Japan is the one that is worried. We got to go in there and take care of business. And then we talked about with today versus Australia, with Tiana Davidson being out, Jaden Shaw being out for so long. People step up and they get the job done, and that's what I expect to see moving forward against Japan. And then if we get through, you talked about Germany. Well, we've already seen that one, and Canada, they are reeling. So yeah, really like the chances.
Yeah, I mean, look, credit to Canada for getting the wins they needed to do to get through the group stage. A lot of people are saying that they feel bad for the players because the players aren't the ones who cheated, and I just have to say that one, the players very much gained a lot of advantages from the spying scandal, and then also, I just find it very hard to believe that you didn't think that something was up. I'm just sorry. I'm calling a little. I know they probably didn't show you actual drone footage. And you're like, why is this being shot like a drone? But like, come on. I don't believe that y'all didn't not think something was up. That's all I'm saying. But I still think we're better than Canada, and we've proven even the fact that they've been cheating this entire time, and we've still beaten them while they're cheaters. It just is one of those where the path, this was always the goal, right? The path to a Olympic final was win the group, because you're not playing France or Spain. That holds true. If they win, they will meet up in the semifinals. So you don't have to play either one of those teams until you have a medal on the line. And hopefully the U.S. wins. All you got to do is win one game, and then you're playing for a medal, and that's important. Because that semifinal, that you make the semifinals, you're going to you're going to be in a medal match. And I think medaling at this tournament is important for a number of reasons. But at this point, my expectations have changed a little, and it's not just go get a medal, it's go win gold. And that confidence being brought back to this team by Emma, and a lot by the players as well, for playing with confidence is huge. Thomas, I think when you look at this team, I think said that bronze, would be okay, but now I think gold needs to, you got to be playing for gold.
Yeah. Weren't really, they're thinking to go for gold, right? That's kind of what we've seen from this national team forever. But as a fan, we saw the matches leading up to it. We weren't overly optimistic on that. And so Emma Hayes needs to continue striving for that, right? Let's make your first, tournament a great success. Again, my only concern is some of the minutes these players have been putting in. I mean, she's been doing some earlier subs too, so it's not as critical as that. But yeah, you've got to go for it. I mean, this team is good enough. Let's not forget that we have the quality on this team, and I think honestly, I'm a huge fan. But having Mallory Swanson back, I think would have made in this tournament's great. But she had been at the World Cup last year, I think we see a little bit of a different team out there in terms of what they're able to finish on, because she's definitely helping create a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are making, they love to make excuses for other teams, but fail to remember that the U.S. was down Mal Swanson and also Katarina Macario last summer, and still down Katarina Macario. And I would love to have seen how this team could have looked with Kat in there. If anything, it just adds depth. Like that's the thing, is like this team has that ability, and you just see I think we all agreed that the talent was still there, right? We looked at this team, we're like, what do you mean everyone else's talent is catching up to us? I see the talent up and down the roster. It's finally good to see the talent shine again, and feel confident in this team. All right, guys, let's wrap this up. We have talked a lot about the U.S. men's and women's national teams here in the 2024 Summer Olympics. We have 2 games coming up. So that is the U.S. men versus Morocco on Friday at 9 a.m. and the U.S. women versus Japan on Saturday at 9 a.m. Early games, still a good watch time. So hopefully we can talk after them. Actually, hopefully we're not talking after them. Hopefully both teams win and we're going to a Olympic final and have to wait a little bit longer before we talk to y'all again. Caleb, love to see you. Glad you're joining us again and continue to help bring up the next generation of soccer lovers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thomas, as always, wonderful to have your thoughts and hope you are enjoying the summers in Maine because I know they're beautiful.
Yeah, I don't leave Maine much this time of year. It's everyone wants to be up here, so I'm also looking forward. I got a busy late summer fall. I'm going to be coaching the high school goalie girls for this at least during the tryout session, and then maybe during the season. So it's going to be along with coaching my daughter's team. So it's going to be a very busy fall. So, but I'm excited for it, and I'm excited for these matches on Friday and Saturday. So.
Well, remember, you can follow Caleb on Twitter at USMNT Corner. You can follow Thomas at US Keeper, and you can follow me at Soccer for Us Pod. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I'm Bart. I'm out.